Kai Robinson, the man of the hour. Welcome back to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Just watched the ACC championships and got some inspiration for my Friday morning.
Take me through it. You're now a retired man, at least retired from the Stanford years. Was it a little emotional seeing your boys run that you competed, trained with last year? A lot of people like Cole, who you're really close friends with, as well as just entirely new conference, entirely new landscape that you never got to be a part of.
Yeah, I feel like it's a different perspective to what I'm used to. I mean, I feel like I'm someone who likes being in there and like at least being on the sidelines cheering, but being however many miles away I am now watching remotely, it's a little bit tough, but I'll cheer those boys on for the rest of my life, and it's still fun to watch regardless.
What's the best Pac-12 memory off the top of your head? Like favorite year you ran it?
I'd say the freshman year. There was something special about being like during COVID, and I wasn't really the biggest guy on the team, and I had my breakout race during that Pac-12 cross country season, and I remember we won as a team emphatically, and that was probably it for me. But honestly, we had multiple team titles here and there in cross, so it's any one of those was fantastic.
Of course, throughout the years, you have different iterations of the team with, new recruits, transfers, all of that. What were some lessons you feel like you learned freshman year as a newbie on the team and got to experience some of the older guys versus like a senior year where you're more in a leadership role and you see the youngins start to come on the team, people like Lex, Leo, some other freshmen from last year?
That's an interesting question. I feel like as a freshman, I was basically just doing whatever the seniors told me. I was kind of in the mindset that these guys know best. And so I went in kind of looking for wisdom, being open to change and taking anything they said on board. And so as I progressed and got better and found myself in that leadership role, I was kind of like, hey, this is my chance to give back to those boys. Like, try show them the right way, let them make those good and bad decisions still as a freshman, but ultimately, hopefully, come back to be the best that they can be for their junior, senior, maybe fifth year.
Are you sad you missed the ACC change, or are you glad that you kind of got to close out your chapter with the chapter of the Pac-12?
I'm a little sad just because it's a new trophy you could have added to the mix, but at the same time, I think it was definitely my time to go. I remember when I was a freshman, sophomore, we were always complaining about all the COVID seventh years and all that, and I feel like would have been a little bit hypocritical if I stayed back so long after criticizing some of those people. But I mean, it's obviously a new race against new people, so unfortunately we weren't able to get the trophy on our first attempt. But I'm sure the guys next year will be back stronger than ever.
Something that I laughed at, I'm sure it wasn't exclusive to Stanford, but I think one of the early season meets, I saw the guys specifically with tape over clearly what used to be the Pac-12 logo. Did you get a kick out of that? I'm assuming you saw that.
Yeah, I definitely did. I was like, wow, that's an interesting look. But I guess the singlets hadn't come in yet, so the guys got to enjoy some giggles here and there. I wasn't sure if the women's had their singlet. I think they had their singlets arrive in time, but it's tough.
I know some people, and I'm sure like people who are a part of the sports programs probably feel greater loyalty, but some people who go to their school, they graduate and then they don't really care or, think about the school they went too much. For you, what's your perspective on Stanford? Will you be like a ride or die where when you have a kid one day, he's wearing like a my dad went to Stanford onesie, or what's your perspective on being a Stanford graduate now?
I think I'm going to be that annoying guy where the kids always donned and Stanford merch or on. That's the only issue is the Nike logo now. Um,
Hey, just put tape over
but
it.
exactly. Change the Pac-12 to the ACC unless we move again. And yeah, I feel like you make so many memories in your time at those schools, and we had the greatest like group of guys. So I feel like I'm gonna always be supporting them, always cheering them on, even when I don't know half of who's on the team.
Take me through and how would you describe like your chapter and era of Stanford? Because you were one of the first guys kind of out of the Milt era when Santos took over the program, you and Charles, and I think Charles was there for 1 year of Milt. What was that era like, and how would you describe kind of continuing the legacy of the program? Because Milt, being one of the most accomplished coaches in the country, a guy like him leaves, and maybe there's some suspicion of, can they continue to dominate at this level? You and Charles kind of picked up the torch, and, as you can speak to, so many stories and the legacy you guys created. How would you describe that era when you were there?
Yeah, Milt was obviously like a great coach when he was at Stanford. It's just he had a very different coaching style to how Ricardo was. And so my first year, there was a lot of that lingering. It was almost like a military style. And so all the guys were very forward and made sure everything was done by the book. And I feel like it almost took away from the fun you get out of the sport. And so as time progressed, I feel like the team decided to adapt into what we wanted to be into what it is now. And I mean, just looking over there, like the work life balance, I think is much better. And I think that a lot of, or the majority of the team is benefiting from that. So I feel like that was a big change that we wanted to introduce and were able to. And who knows, in a couple of years, maybe they see that as harming and change it a different way altogether.
When you think back to your Stanford years, how much do you think they impacted you as a person? So kind of talking outside the sport of running, because obviously on paper it's very easy to say it transformed you as an athlete, but how do you feel like those years at the farm transformed Kai Robinson, the individual, the person?
It's interesting because I'm. It's like a mix between is it Stanford that's changing me or is it a different country altogether? But
Mm.
I can't really speak on this myself just because to me I've always been the same. But I'm sure when you go back and look at a video of me when I was 18, 19, coming into college, and a video of me now, there's going to be some wide differences. But I feel like I've always been someone who's been pretty laid back and willing to adapt, willing to change. And so you definitely change in your time in college. You form new friendships, find new hobbies, become like a completely different person. And I feel like I've just tried to almost like go with the flow and see where that's taken me. And thankfully, it's taken me somewhere that I want to be.
Continuing on the cross conversation, I know there's probably the opportunity, and you've done it in the past, to represent Australia on a world global stage within cross, but the professional athletes I talk to at the highest level, they all seem to like, definitely they're a little sad their cross days are over from like a college or high school perspective. What's your mindset around that? Just like obviously, you'll never get the chance to be on a cross team again. And do you wish there was kind of like a formalized cross country league within the pro world?
I'm gonna be controversial and say no. I'm
Okay.
I'm not really someone who misses cross as to like so much. Like when I was in high school, it was definitely crossover track, but I feel like the amount of miles you have to put in, the amount of like longer, tougher workouts, I feel like are reasons that I don't like cross country. That's obviously the lazy side of me. Obviously, like you'll miss the team aspect. That's a big part that I'm never gonna get over. But from an individual standpoint, I much prefer the mundaneness of the track and being able to do simple stuff to get fast rather than running up crazy hills every second day or something like. But I guess with World Cross, we'll always have that little chance of reliving the glory days.
With, I think the last time I talked to you was post NCAA's last summer, when you won the double. So kind of bringing us up to speed here and talking through some races and accomplishments of yours over the past year. So you won the double. I'm curious to go back in time to like a year ago. How do you feel like that set up the expectation for your final year at Stanford, where you win the double, one of the most impressive stretches I've seen in recent NCAA history, and then you get thrown right back into the fire of cross, where it's just so many guys, including yourself, firing from all cylinders. I think this year will be really competitive again, as well as early season meets have shown. But last year was a different type of energy, where you knew people like you and Nico was your final year, and then you throw in Parker and Hapdom and the whole crew? What was that, expectation like after winning the double?
I guess it brought a new level of expectations. Like I feel like a lot of people set a higher standard, but at the same time, it took a big weight off your shoulders. Like my whole dream at that point was to go professional, and I said I'd finish out my 4 years at Stanford, get that degree, so that my parents obviously happy, and just having that in the back of your mind, kind of knowing that hey, I've won some things, and brands are gonna love that. That took a lot of pressure off, I think, and I feel like for us, we always have to deal with high expectations from all the fans, all the critics, and so that was just like an added level of pressure that I tend to enjoy. I know others like being out of that limelight, but if it's more pressure, it kind of motivates me a little bit more, I guess. And so I think I can use that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to capitalize last year. I got too many thirds to count. Um, but such as running, like NCAA is getting faster every single day, and I mean, if you go look at the pre-nats times on that Wisconsin course, they smoke the previous course records, and some of the people who had ran on that course, you'd be surprised that they were able to go that fast.
Real quickly, on that point of people running so fast this year, do you feel like if, Kai from a year ago, like same fitness, same all of that, came into this year and ran in that race that he would have run significantly faster? Because my hypothesis a little bit, I've seen this at the high school and professional level, as well as not just the college level, is it seems like these packs just carry each other to ridiculous times because they're way more focused on competing and then the times just come with it. I feel like every year the expectation just gets set higher where nutty come people go out faster and they just hang on. They forget about the time because it's cross. So my question is like, do you feel like last year, if you ran again, that your times would have been significantly faster, even in the same shape, just that different switch in mindset as a competitor?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's obviously cross country's a different race every single time you run it. Like someone can take it out ridiculously fast, and then everyone kind of dies back. Someone can not go out, and it can be a jog fest for the first half the race. And I remember when we were watching it, we were kind of saying the cop out that the weather conditions are perfect that day. Like we would have been up there, we would have been challenging, but at the same time, how fast those guys are running, it's a big cop out to blame weather on 30 seconds, and it's only something you can tell if you're there. And I don't know, it's one of those hypotheticals that we'll never truly be able to answer unless they go to the track, I guess.
Speaking on the national meet from last year in Virginia, take me through that day, take me through that race where just a classic Kai Robinson swagger move. You always put yourself in it. Like you always put yourself in it. It looked like with 1K to go, you were seeing God. Take me through that race.
Yeah, I remember it was kind of chill for the first 6 or 7K. There was a lot of little surges put here and there, but I was kind of thinking I'm not going to touch the front. Like if they slow down, I'm happy. If they pick it up, I'm happy with that too. And yeah, I remember we got to about 7.5K, and it was the last lap when we were going out, and I was like, okay, this is it. We get to 8K, and my body starts not responding to me how I'd like it to, and I could tell that everyone around me seemed to be hurting too. And so it was one of those classic bluffs that if I push the pace now, hopefully people die back faster than I do. And I think that probably worked for me in the sense that I was able to finish in the top three. But obviously, with a K to go, the bluff started to show when Graham and Hobton went by so easily. And I remember my whole thing is never look back, and the amount of times I looked back in that last 500 meters was criminal. And thankfully, I'd put enough distance on the OSU and NAU guys that I was able to hold them off. But I guess the levels of fitness between Hobton, Graham, and then myself and the rest of the guys was pretty evident that day.
Take me through. You mentioned the aspect of like first 6, 7K was pretty chill, pretty casual. What's going through your head? Because that's a significant portion of the race as well as just time within the race. How do you keep yourself? And I know this is probably the same for like track 10Ks. How do you keep yourself like calm and composed while also probably analyzing everyone around you and knowing, okay, someone can make a quick surge now, or someone races always turn out differently and you never know if that day is going to be different. So what goes through your head, 6, 7K in a race, which is pretty far distance when you're just, it's hard, but it's not balls to the wall.
Yeah, I feel like I always get this question of like from I guess non-runners mainly. They're like, "What do you think of in a race?" And it's weird because like running doesn't have that much strategy. But I'm honestly thinking about that like the whole race. Like I'm constantly like scanning to see who's here, who's moving up, how are people looking. Like the first kilometer is always just get out as fast as you can and try survive. But the next couple are kind of just sitting in and I guess trusting in yourself and making sure you don't do anything silly. And if you do, then try not to suffer the embarrassment of going out that fast, which is a great motivator at times. But in that race, I really think that I guess like when you jog the course the day before, you're always like looking where's the tangents, where's the hills, where's like a moment I can put a surge in. And I remember for a good majority of the race, like people weren't actually running the like proper tangents, and I was like, okay, well, it seems like it's only really like Graham and I that are doing that, and we'll let the other guys expend a little bit more energy here and there. And so I guess like when you think of that, like you get a little confidence boost, and a lot of the time, I guess it is that bluffing of telling yourself you feel good because if you keep doing that, there's like that placebo that maybe you do feel good, and you get a little bit more out of the tank than you would have if you were just suffering the entire time.
During your years at Stanford, did you ever talk during your cross country race? And if so, what's the story?
The one definitely jumps into mind. I remember it was a Florida State meet. It was like our first season opener, my sophomore year, and I was criminally out of shape. And I remember some New Zealand guy from Eastern Michigan comes past me and he says, "We can get this guy." And I'm like, "I'm in pain right now." But I'm like, "Let's do it. Like let's work together." And thankfully we managed to carry each other to not my greatest finish of all time, that's for sure, but it was a good I guess realization that I need to get back to fitness quickly. And then there's other times where I'm thinking of Pac-12 was my junior year for cross country, and it was me, Charles, and Cole at the front, and we'd gone out insanely fast because one of the UW milers just got told to try string the pack out and hurt us early. And we got to about 3 or 4K, and Charles said, "Okay, Kai, your turn to take the lead." And I remember being in so much pain that I was like, "Man, I'm just coming off a nutty cone win. Why is this so difficult right now?" And I ended up exploding that race, so probably would have been better if I didn't agree to that and talk with Charles, but our team still managed to win, and I think we got the lowest score in like the Pac-12 ever. So even though I wasn't there on the day, the boys sure did turn up.
You could read about the incredibly high moments within your years at Stanford, the NCAA championships, the Pac-12 titles. For me, on paper, I think maybe what's most impressive is that you were a 13-time All-American. I rarely have ever seen that. I'd be curious what the stats are for like who has the most All-Americans. But to be consistently that good, throughout a career is rarely seen. A lot of people come on their last year and might win an NCAA title or two, which you did as well. Small flex. But like very, very few like are consistent all throughout their years. For you, how were you so consistent, and what would you attribute that kind of longevity in sport to? Like that you were consistently good every single year.
I mean, freshman year, I'm gonna put it down like the steeplechase was not a fluke, I guess, but in a large portion of it, like I did improve a lot across the season, but going in, I definitely was like a nobody. Like, I don't think anyone had me on their cards to be an All American or even at the NCAA meet. And so that first year, I was kind of racing with no pressure at all and could go out, do what you want. Obviously, I took a fall that year, and I got lucky with a couple of other people taking a falls and like the heats. And I guess that worked for me. But then from then on in, I kind of gave myself that bar to reach every time. And as I said before, like I feel like I'm someone who handles pressure very well. And I think after that steeplechase, like All American, I think I only missed out on All American in one race for the rest of my collegiate career. And that race I missed out was definitely like the low point. And I think I said to myself, like, I'm not doing this again. And it was the last race before I won NCAAs. And so I think that may have been a little bit of a wake up call, or just, I guess, time to dial in even more so than a wake up call. I was always kind of there, but I can't attribute anything to longevity. I guess a lot of the sport is luck, and there is a lot of different scenarios that can occur during race day. And thankfully, I think I can make do with whatever is thrown my way. And if it's a fast race, I can usually stick with it. And if it's a kicker's race, I'll always back myself in that last 800 meters.
On paper, I think undoubtedly, without argument, you're one of the most accomplished Stanford runners of all time. And you're in some pretty high company there with someone like Grant Fisher, who just medaled twice at the Olympics. If I'm not mistaken, I think you have more All-Americans than him, more NCAA titles than him. What does it mean to contribute to a program that those who have listened to the 22 minutes of this conversation know that you love and appreciate a ton? What does it mean to leave your legacy and leave the program much better than you found it?
I just love the fact that I'm able to continue that tradition of greatness. And I remember every day when we would meet or practice, we would sit by these like massive stone pillars, I guess, that have all the NCAA champions and I guess world record holders from the past on there, and you can kind of see like all the great names every single day. And there was always the joke that why is Charles and my name not up there yet? Like, and they finally put it up this year, so I haven't actually seen myself on there. But it's something where greatness is definitely something we strive for at Stanford, and I'm just glad that I was able to carry that tradition that so many people have, I guess, set in the past. And I'm sure that as time goes on, like our program will remain fantastic, and we'll have new recruits that will come in and take up the reins and make my feats look small.
You use the word greatness there. How would you personally define greatness in this next stage of your career?
For me right now, it's kind of similar to when you go in as a freshman onto a college team. There's a little bit of that pressure, but at the same time, like I feel like a lot of eyes are kind of taken off you as you join a new team and you step up into a bigger league. And so right now, for me, it's basically trying to be the best version of myself on the track and obviously off the track. But it's taken those little progress steps and not overcomplicating. Like, I'm not going to be a gold medalist this year, at least I assume.
Yeah, crazy
But
things have happened.
there's steps on the way to hopefully get me to that stage at one point, and that's always the end goal. But there's definitely a hierarchy that you have to climb before you can get to those stages. So it's another one of those things where you're joining a new environment. I'm at altitude now. I'm gonna have to be a little bit smarter with how I recover and how I train so that I can adapt to a new training philosophy and take it in stride into the outdoor season next year.
One more final question on Stanford years and reflections from those 4 years there. What does it mean to you to show and prove to your home country of Australia and future recruits that you can make the jump, you can come to the States and be dominant within the NCAA? Because I think generally when you see transfers kill it, it's not from Australia. You guys have many examples of success, but again, you're kind of one-on-one on paper in terms of 13-time All-American, 2-time NCAA champion, 3-time Pac-12 championship winner. What does it mean to you to there's probably a middle schooler or high schooler listening from Australia who's like looks up to you and they're like, Kai's the reason I want to explore the NCAA and see what I can do within it. He proved it can be done.
I mean, it's a thing where I feel like I'm almost giving back to the community after they've given it to me, because for me, when I was in high school, I was that guy watching Morgan McDonald come over to the US and absolutely kill it at Wisconsin. And there was a long time in my career where I said like, hey, I want to be like Morgan. And I remember something corny from like my freshman year. I remember like looking up a bunch of Australians' results, their freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year, and like typing in a little sticky note on my computer. Like I remember Morgan finished 70 something in his first cross country season, and I was able to finish 46. So I was like, wow, like I can kind of be as great as this guy. And I mean, I've told him that now. He's one of my best friends, and we've laughed about that. But hopefully, in 5 or 6 years' time, there's a similar story to be said for me with some high schooler or middle school Australian that's rising up through the ranks now and is able to use my story as motivation, and just as I had used Morgan's.
Tying your collegiate years to your professional years and going back to something you were talking about a few minutes ago in terms of the shift in your Stanford years of having a little more fun, enjoying some of the smaller moments more. On paper, there's probably no professional team in the U.S. that enjoys life and running as much as the OAC. Maybe I'm wrong there, but they just seem to have a good fun every single day. How much did that factor into your decision to join the group? Just seeing them, work incredibly hard. The workouts I know are crazy, but also have a laugh, have fun. I know they do that very, very well.
Yeah, I think that obviously there's going to be bias here, but I think they are like the greatest group in the world right now. And so I saw that and I was like, hey, this is a team that I want to join. I want to train with the best so I can become the best version of myself. And then you go to them and you talk to them and you hang out with them. And I remember I had a visit here and I'm like, wow, these guys are like great guys too. They're not just, I love running and that's all I do. Like they have personalities outside of it that make running fun. And you can go on whatever easy run and have a conversation that's going to be completely different to a conversation with someone else. And so I feel like there's no clashes, at least that I've seen yet, between personalities. Like everyone loves each other and wants the best for everyone else. And so it's really positive, I guess, when you're moving to a new group to have that sense of community and environment.
I'm assuming based on paper with how accomplished you were, you could basically run for any group or any brand you wanted to. What was the recruiting process like for you in terms of evaluating groups and brands on which was ultimately going to be the best fit for you long term?
For me, it was, I feel like I did a lot of it right when I did my NIL. Like there was a lot of talks between brands here and there, and I feel like On was really forward in their athlete first policies, and they like at first when I was getting recruited, I guess you can call it, like I was like, I don't know if this is a marketing gimmick or if it's something where they're trying to make this seem great, but really it's the same as any other brand. But after a year and a half of being with them, I can see that like it is genuine. Like they do put the athlete first and foremost, and they really do develop the brand around them. I guess that's what happens when your founders were professional triathletes, and they obviously want the best for us, because then the company seems to do a lot better. And so I feel like a lot of those talks with agents and reps was trying to find that connection that really spoke out to me. And I obviously knew a lot of people at Nike through my Stanford days. I worked at Bauman camp 2 years in a row, and I made a lot of good friends at Nike. But I feel like there's something special about On that just drew me towards them, and I'm like, they've got fantastic results of recent, and as I said before, the group of guys I get to train with are the best in the world, and can have that fun outside the sport. And so it was obviously a tough decision for the NIL trying to choose who to go with there, but then for my pro decision, I think I was kind of recruiting myself towards On, and yeah, as soon as that offer kind of arose that I was happy with, I was willing to take it and hop straight on board.
Have to ask you a personal question here. How much recruiting did Charles try to do one on one?
Um,
Bring
it's
the
it's
band back
interesting
together.
because we kind of didn't do much recruiting my senior year after he left, but there was definitely plenty of talks my junior year of me trying to recruit him to On and him trying to recruit me to Nike, and there was a constant back and forth, and neither of us seemed to be budging. Like he seems to have his whole life set out, so unfortunately, I guess he got to make the first call and went where he loved, and there was obviously that lingering part in the back of my mind of maybe we do reunite, but I feel like it's one of those things where it's going to work out perfectly for both of us, and we can pretend to be rivals for the cameras now, but it's obviously going to be all love underneath.
Got to ask you this: on when was the first time you heard of the company or saw the shoe? Like, what was your first impression, if you can go back to hearing about On?
I want to say it was year 8. I've got some horrendous pictures of me wearing On shoes. I remember I did some trail race in the middle of nowhere in Australia with my dad. He was doing like a mountain bike race, and there was this pop up stall, and it was On shoes, and we went and talked to them, and the guy managed to convince my dad to get an impulse buy of shoes for me. And I think that entire cross country season, I ran in what was some pretty bad On shoes, but they seemed to work for me at that point, and I'm sure there's going to be a post eventually from someone of me as some like 13, 14-year old in these blue and gray On shoes, and thankfully the company's come a long way since then, and the shoes are definitely much better. And yeah, I'm not looking forward to that flashback picture.
Speaking of the group itself, they've obviously illustrated on many event groups at many levels that, they get it done. Yara being one example of many from this year of, medaling at the Olympics, which is obviously something that's in the back of your head. What are the conversations? And I know you mentioned a minute ago, you kind of have that freshman mindset, but what have the conversations been like with Dathan so far, or other people on the team who have competed really successfully at the global stage of, what's it going to take me to get there?
Um, I think there's obviously a lot of faith in the training and what goes on outside that's hopefully going to elevate me to that next level. I feel like there was a lot of one percenters that I haven't done in the past, and it's always been I don't even know how to describe it, but a little bit lazy maybe on my part, but I'm really trying to make that change this year and doing those little things to make myself better, like going into the training room as often as I can and getting work done. Whereas in the past, it might just be, oh, I'm going to be okay. Like we can train through it. It's nothing serious. Whereas now I'm obviously, as part of my job, the better I do, the more I get paid, hopefully. And so I feel like really fighting for those little incentives to get me to be the best that I can be. And I think those are little things I'm going to be doing to to improve to that next level and, you know, be on that global stage the same way that like the Yards of the team or like the Helena Beeries are doing now.
One question on what you're up to this weekend. Take the people through the trip to New York City. What's on the docket for Kai Robinson, and how exciting is it to travel not for a race?
I think it's a bit of fun. Like it's a part of the collegiate running that you don't typically get, and so we're obviously going out there for New York Marathon. We got Helena Beery in the field, who's going to absolutely crush it as she always does. Like she's very clearly the queen of the team. Like everyone kind of wants to be her, and we get to all go out and cheer her on. Obviously, we're going to have a bunch of little pop up things that are going on here and there. I think I'm going to go and sit in on the Coffee Club podcast and watch those guys kind of banter around and do a live thing, and then we're going to have a big cheer section for the race, and probably be handing out a bunch of fun stuff. And yeah, I guess I've only been to New York once before this, so to get to go and do a little bit of tourism things here and there, it's a lot of fun that you would not like otherwise get.
Before that flight, I know you need to get a run and a lift in. So wrapping up this conversation, off the top of my head, a few fun questions for you. So we're recording this November 1st. Got 3 questions for you off the top of my head. So Halloween was last night. 2 questions around Halloween, 1 around Christmas. First question for you. Favorite candy of Kai Robinson?
Oh, probably right now, Scandinavian swimmers. The sour ones.
What in the world is that, dude?
Trader Joe's?
Is this a thing? I've never heard of that. My uncultured.
This is a huge candy. I've probably got a packet within like 3 meters of me right now.
Trader Joe's. So if I go to my local Trader Joe's, I'll find them?
Absolutely. Like they're game changing. I think we had Dylan Jacobs in town like over the other day, and we were kind of like, you gotta try these. He'd never tried them before, and I think if you were to ask him, he would say the same thing. They're just fantastic, man.
Okay. So next time I get you on the podcast, I'll buy some ahead of time and we can do a live taste test review.
Absolutely.
What would you compare them to? Like what modern candy are they most like?
They're probably similar to like a Sour Patch, but
okay.
They're better than that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm excited for this. Next time with Kai on the pod, live Scandinavian swimmers is what they're called. What a name.
Yep.
What a name. Okay, second question for you. Going back in time, what's the best Halloween costume Kai Robinson's ever pulled out?
I haven't really celebrated Halloween too much in my childhood. I feel like it's definitely a
Is it a
tradition.
thing in Australia?
It is, and it's definitely growing now. Like when I was a kid, it wasn't big, but you can see that, I guess, American influence seeping out into the world. I think, honestly, my best one was probably this year. Myself, Morgan, and Cinta all went as the challengers people from the recent movie, and so we all kind of did our own DIY costumes and made it work. And Morgan looked great as Zendaya, and so that was a fun one. I remember going as Scarface, classically right after I got stepped on in the steeple, and so.
Oh, that's great.
That's probably going to be thrown up there, but yeah, I'd probably say the challenges one. Our outfits were pretty darn good this year.
It's the most Morgan McDonald thing I've ever heard, and I love it. I love it. Kai, final question for you, man. November 1st, can you start listening to Christmas music? If not now, when?
I'm going to give it like 2 more weeks.
Okay.
I think. I feel like we're still like 2 months out, so it's a little early, but
gotta pace yourself.
So let's say November 15th comes around. I think it's okay. Or I'm questioning whether it should go after Thanksgiving though. That's the only thing. Like I think we start November 15th.
If it snows in Boulder, would your mind change? Would you be like, I'm a hop on Spotify?
I've never had a white Christmas, so
okay.
I would honestly say no. The snow would deter me. I feel like we'll allow it at November 15th for a week.
Okay.
And then when Thanksgiving week's here, we kind of put it on the back burner, and then as soon as that week's over, it's all hands on deck, Mariah
Okay.
Carey, that Michael Bublé every day.
I love it. I love it. Kai, really appreciate the conversation. As always, you're a fan favorite. People always love my conversations with you, but I always get so much out of them. Wise beyond your years. You always bring so much wisdom and perspective through your remarkable performances, and stoked to see this rookie year come to life in 2025. So keep crushing it. Enjoy the Big Apple, and yeah, enjoy Christmas music in 2 weeks and finishing that bag of Scandinavian swimmers.
Yeah, I'll need to go to Trader Joe's soon. I think I'm running low.